Hey everybody, it's Allison here with New Little Life. I'm an IBCLC and a breast pump expert, and here on the New Little Life channel, we talk about all things pumping. So that's fun. If you enjoy pumping or you're going to be pumping a lot, go ahead and subscribe so that you can see new videos every week, get helpful tips and tricks to make it easier and more enjoyable. Today we're going to be talking about the worst ways to increase your milk supply. And these are things that I'm seeing a lot of moms trying that just don't work. So let's just kind of get these out of the way so we know what doesn't work, and then we'll talk about a few things to actually help increase milk supply. If you are a working mom who's struggling with pumping and you're looking to pump fast and efficiently so you can protect your milk supply while you continue to thrive in your career, and you want some help with that, making that easier in a step-by-step plan, go ahead and click the link below. You can talk with me and a member of my team about joining our Pumping for Working Moms program, where we specifically help moms just like you pump fast and efficiently. That's our goal. Okay, but let's dive into today's topic, which are the worst ways to increase milk supply. Okay, number one on this list has to be cookies and supplements. This is an expensive Band-Aid that will likely not be sustainable. So even if you do see an increase because you bought some expensive lactation cookies or tried a new supplement and you're like, whoa, milk's there. Like, for one, that's not actually like what happens. And two, this is just not a sustainable thing. And it's not fixing the underlying issue that's happening. Like, if you have to eat cookies or take supplements every single day to maintain good lactation, something else isn't right here. For me, I think it's more important to figure out the underlying cause of why your milk supply is low. Is your milk supply actually low, or is it normal and we just kind of have some unrealistic expectations? That happens quite a bit too. But cookies, supplements are kind of on my no-go list. Now, I do know that sometimes they can be helpful, and that's fine. Like, if we have a supplement that we like and it's working, but it is almost always last on my list of suggestions, because for me, I really like to dive into what's actually causing this versus let's throw some galactagogues at you and hope that works. Number two might seem kind of counterintuitive, but it is to pump more. Pumping more sometimes is the fix actually to low milk supply, especially if you're not pumping enough to start with. We have to pump frequently and effectively to maintain milk supply. But what I see happening sometimes is moms kind of go into overdrive. So they're like, I'm not making enough, so I got to pump more. Actually, I've talked to several moms recently, especially in the application calls to come into our program, where they're like, I'm pumping every 2 hours. I'm power pumping in the evenings. I'm doing all the stuff. I'm feeding at the breast too. They're just pumping so much because their milk supply is a little low or not where they need it to be. And this is not fixing the underlying issue, right? Pumping more is not always the answer. Sometimes it is, though. So sometimes when we're not pumping enough, we're getting 4 or 5 sessions in a day. That's likely not enough to sustain a milk supply unless you have a really large breast milk capacity and you're far postpartum and you have well-established something, But the whole idea here is that pumping more is not always the answer. And sometimes it is just kind of masking the underlying issue of what's happening. It might be that we're not pumping correctly. Some aspect of pumping isn't going well or isn't quite right. And so we have to pump more to even maintain what we're doing. Does that make sense? So pumping more is not, it leads me to ask more questions. What's actually happening here? Does that make sense? Okay, number 3 is to pump less often. And you'd be surprised how many times I hear moms say, well, I actually get more milk if I pump less often. So I've been going 4 or 5 hours in between pumping sessions because then I get a full 4 or 5 ounces instead of just 2 or 3 when I pump every 2.5 to 3 hours, And I can see where that math makes sense. But the thing is that full breasts fill up slow. They're full, right? So if you're waiting to let your breasts fill all the way up so that you can get a large amount out at once, it's actually slowing production overall. So if your breast is all the way empty, your hormones and your brain is going to be working fast to fill that up. But if you only empty it halfway and then we're just kind of waiting for it to fill up, it's just going to fill up. But it only made this many. It only made 2 ounces when it was supposed to make 4. Does that make sense? So it might seem like a quick win. If I just wait a little longer, I'll have more milk, or I have the most milk in the morning after I've been sleeping the longest. So maybe I do need to pump less so I can get more out. it will very quickly turn into a downward spiral of low milk supply because, again, you're only feeling it's full. Full breasts are not making more milk, right? Empty breasts make milk. So emptying more often, frequently, even if the amounts are smaller, will help you sustain a milk supply that will work for you long term. So don't wait for breasts to get full to pump by pumping less. That's not a great way to increase supply. Okay, number 4 is trying too many things at once. And this is what I also hear a lot from moms that come and join our program, is that they've just been trying everything, basically throwing spaghetti at the wall, trying to see what sticks. And this can be a tricky place to be because if something does happen in a positive note, how do we know what it was, right? Or how do we know where to start first? So if you start by increasing your pumping schedule, also trying lactation cookies and supplements, you're also doing hands-on pumping, you're also messing with your flange sizes, you're also working on meditation during your pumps to get better letdowns, you're also drinking a gallon of water every day, and then your milk supply increases a little bit. How do we know? We can't do all of that forever. So this is where it gets a little tricky, but I totally understand. We don't really have time to waste. If you've got low milk supply, if you're not making enough for your baby, you got to try something. So what's going to make the biggest difference for you? What's the area that's not quite right? I think understanding that and getting some help into figuring out what's actually the piece that's not working for me and where do I adjust first so that I can get my supply where it needs to be as soon as possible, because we know the longer that it goes, the harder it is to get back, you know what I mean? So trying too many things at once, if you're trying to troubleshoot this on your own, I recommend just kind of like one thing at a time. Take your best guess, I guess, at what might be the problem. If you want some help figuring that out and like a step-by-step guide to making sure you're pumping correctly, and then all the other aspects that go into pumping aside from the logistics too there, that's what we do inside our program. And you can chat with one of us about how to get started. But be cautious of how many things you're trying at one time. Number 5 is power pumping. And I don't know, maybe you'll disagree with me here, but power pumping is not my favorite way to increase supply because it's not always sustainable. And again, it's not addressing the underlying issue of what's happening. I will say that there is definitely a place for power pumping, and it can be a really effective method if it addresses the problem that's actually happening. Does that make sense? When you're power pumping, that's when you're pumping like short intervals really close together. So like 10 minutes on, 10 minutes off, 10 minutes on, 10 minutes off, something like that. Anytime I see an increase in overall supply with something like this, it gives me a lot of information on what might be happening. So if you find that your breasts are so much better emptied after power pumping and that things are so much more effective, we might actually have a problem with getting good letdowns while we're pumping, because you're initiating multiple letdowns and actually draining the breast well. So that makes a lot of sense. If you get huge numbers, like you get double the amount of ounces that you normally do in a session with power pumping, that tells me that you're not pumping efficiently, that we're not actually emptying the breast every time. If you're not getting big numbers, it's just like it's more about stimulation. So you get like a similar, maybe a little bit more milk than normal, but we're really going for more stimulation. That can be a thing too. Maybe we're not pumping enough during the day, or maybe the baby is not an effective feeder at the breast, all of these things. So power pumping for me really is a short-term something, and it has to be directly corresponded to the underlying issue. So again, just like randomly power pumping is not going to increase your supply long term, and it's also not sustainable. So if this is something that you find that you're having to do every day or multiple times a day, something else is not quite right with pumping. So not my favorite way to increase supply. Sometimes we do use it, but again, we have to really understand what's happening underneath it to use it as a valid suggestion. Number 6, worst way to increase milk supply is to buy a new pump. And I've said this before, there's another video on the channel where it said stop buying breast pumps. The idea is not that you shouldn't buy new pumps, like buying pumps is fun. And I have a whole closet over here full of breast pumps because it's fun. But if you have low supply, buying a new pump is almost the last thing that I suggest to people that I'm working with. Sometimes people can want like the magic button. Like, I've got money, I'm going to throw money at this problem. Or like, where's the magic pill to take to just like make this work? And it's just not going to work, right? So if you have a high quality pump, which honestly, we can make almost any pump on the market work these days. Sometimes we do need a different pump for whatever reasons, but I found that more often than not, especially the people that join my program are not buying new pumps to solve their problems, right? Unless you have a really low quality pump or just a pump that is not working for your lifestyle or something like that. But it is almost never the breast pump that is the problem. It's almost always pumping techniques. So logistics of pumping or the mental aspects of pumping. It's just so complex. I've said this before and I'll say it again, that pumping is an art. There is so much more than just pumping correctly, just getting the logistics down. The longer I do this, the more surprised I am at how much your mental state and the things that are happening inside your body, hormonally, emotionally, these really, really affect pumping. And I know it can be hard to come to terms with that, but it is not very often that I have a mother who can just put on a pump and just push go and everything works. I mean, it does happen sometimes, but man, it is not the norm. So if you need some help troubleshooting this, if you want to work with me and my team and to really feel confident in pumping, knowing that you're doing it correctly, and then diving into working on doing it fast and efficiently, that's what we do. And we love it. And we would love to talk with you more about that and see if that works for you, because I know that all of these suggestions are everywhere. They're all over the internet. They're on every blog, social media. They're everywhere. And they're not necessarily bad suggestions, but when you're just throwing everything you can find at a problem, it not only is difficult to know how to fix the problem, but it's really frustrating and anxiety provoking. Like I said, I see this all the time with moms that come into our program are just like, I don't know. I've tried tons of stuff on my own. You're here watching this video. I know you're looking for answers. I want to give them to you, but we've got to work a little bit more closely together. So, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll keep putting out content that is hopefully helpful for you and can get you the answers you're looking for. But at the end of the day, you might actually have to come and work with a professional and just make this process easier for yourself. I want you to find joy in this journey. And actually, I just filmed another video that I'll put down on how to not hate pumping. Like, there's so much to this. It's not just about getting the milk that you need for your baby. I want you to enjoy this process. And I want you to have confidence in yourself, knowing that you can do it. And I want you to be proud of your accomplishment instead of crawling across the finish line of your goal. And okay, you hit it, but that sucked. And I never want to do that again. And I hated everything about that. Please don't let that be you. So if you're struggling with low milk supply, or you just want to feel more confident about what you're doing, and especially how can we sustain this long term, let me know. Let's chat and figure it out. Hope this video was helpful. Let me know in the comments, what did you think? What things have worked for you? What things haven't worked for you? Everybody's different, and I always like interacting with you down there. I'll put another video here for you that I think you'll like, and hopefully we'll see you again on the channel. Happy pumping. Good luck.